the third and final part of our catch-up today with Buckingham here on Cryptocast, brought to you by the Australian Yowie Project. Buck, the question I've got now for you after, your involvement for pretty much almost, 3/4 of your life so far, what are Yowies to you? What do they mean to you, or what is a Yowie to you now that you've got all this research and information under your belt?
I've got a lot of information. I've got a lot of research. I want to do a lot more. Having listened to lots and lots of encounters now, and I've been in a privileged position to illustrate some of them before they go out, I realize that you can't have a solid definition of what one is, because okay, first of all, I'll come from the position, I believe they're flesh and blood. I really believe they're flesh and blood. I lean more on that side of the fence than paranormal. I do think that some of the activities that surround them can seem paranormal, like the fear, which I hypothesize might come from infrasound.
I think Gary Opitz summed it up really well in podcast 1 when he said that to him, when people call something paranormal is because they don't have an answer for what they've seen.
Correct. And for first-time viewers, when I say viewers, for, Ma and Pa just driving along in their car and something runs across the road in front of them, they may have never heard of a Yowie. So now they're faced with this paradigm where the universe that they thought existed is not the same. There's a big hairy creature running around in the bush, in the Australian bush. So for those people, it would be very, very hard to explain. And if you were walking in the bush and something happened, you could take on a paranormal experience of it. There's a thing called hysterical blindness, whereas if you are so frightened or so confused by your surrounding or input, you can physically not see something in front of you. So
if we accept that the human brain is a computer, that a lot of people have said that it's a form of biological computer. Like all computers, that when it gets overloaded with information, it needs time to decompile that. It needs time to be able to process that. Now, some human brains can process faster than others. And others, until they can process everything, have no answers for what they see, so they either deny or they say it's paranormal because they have no explanation.
They have no explanation, but at the same time they're having this experience, they're usually, I would imagine, operating on a very primitive level. At that point, your survival instincts kick in. No one's going, hey, I better grab my camera. People going, I've got to get away from this thing.
Fight or flight is a powerful factor.
It's a powerful factor. It's self-preservation kicking in. I had a really good experience in an area that you took me to, Ray. This was last year. I think it was on the 25th of May. I'd gone out ostensibly to get more photos for backgrounds to illustrations that I do.
That wasn't the day we went out and it was 41 degrees. No, that was in January. That's right.
That was in January. This was mercifully in
and
late May.
And don't forget to come back to that, because you got the handprint on your car after to talk about that.
Oh yeah, that was.
But sorry, back to May. But let's not forget January. But back to May.
Okay, so back to May. I'd gone out to a location in Queensland. And you'd taken me out there. It's where you'd seen this tree sitter. So you introduced me to this new location. I'm great. I'm going, great. I'll look around. Anyway, so I went back there, and Rod Quinton had given me a tip to take a left turn. So I did. And I'd gone to take a lot more background pictures for these illustrations. I also had brought a brand new GoPro. And I thought, I'm not going to be that guy that doesn't have something ready to go for when I get clipped by a rock or something. So I had my GoPro going on
before you get chosen.
Before I get chosen, anointed, blessed. So I had bought a dash cam, because again, I was so concerned that I would drive down there and miss the opportunity to recall what I'd seen. In the end, I'd be grateful if I saw something anyway, but I want to be prepared. So the dash cam did not work. I then relied on just using the GoPro, and so I'm taking pictures. I'd gone down to this creek river, you know it very well, and I'd followed this big flattened path down, and I thought it might have belonged to a fisherman, but it was down by the river, and I was taking photos. I couldn't see anything, couldn't smell anything, couldn't hear anything, but it was also unusually clean for the type of fishermen that go there. There's usually bottles of Jack Daniels, or there's a bait packet. You can tell a cigarette butt.
Again, bad guests.
Yeah, bad guests. So I went, all right, I'll leave the car where it is. I dragged this poor little comedy car out like it's a four-wheel drive. So I parked it, and I thought, I'm just going to walk. So I kept walking along this track that was right next to the river. The river was on my right as I was walking out. And I'm ready for something. If something happens, I'm just listening. I'm also enjoying it. If I don't see anything, it's never a loss for me because I'm out in the bush. I'm happy as a pig in mud. So I usually go lights out. I have a torch with me because that's the only thing that apparently will help you. It's a very bright torch, but I don't use a torch if I go out. So I'm walking along. There's enough light. And I'm starting to think, I should head back to the car now. And as I was getting back to the car, I'd earlier noticed what I thought in a rut that a four-wheel drive had gone over. A footprint. It wasn't clear, but I was looking at it and going, is that just a deformation from something that the car has done? It's unclear. I'll take a photo of that when I get back. I just wanted to keep going early. So I was heading back towards that, and I went past this big, massive dead tree. I'd passed it 5 minutes before, and I thought, okay, I think this is it. So I had a tiny torch, a little torch, and I put the torch on, and I was shining it around on the ground. And then this massive thump, 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 thump happened. And the thumps were so loud. I've been in the bush heaps of times. There's nothing I've ever experienced like that. It felt like that someone was throwing Bessebrooks blocks on the ground near my feet.
Wow.
They just vibrated through me, and I was excited. I went, this is it. Finally, I'm going to be eaten, and they'll know I was right. Anyway, so...
And you'll have your Blair Witch GoPro to prove it.
Yeah, I had my Blair Witch GoPro, and I'm ready. And I turn the light off, and I start circling in the bush. Also excited, but scared. I'm not stupid, but I'm excited. I'm electrified by this thing. And then suddenly my phone rings. And no. I go, okay, this is a good time to answer because I've got someone on the end of the line.
You know, your life and your Yowie experiences are a cliche horror movie, right?
They are, absolutely. It's a very bad script. Anyway, so this person rings up and they want the number of someone in the comedy industry, and I tell them what I'm doing. It's great because I've got another human on the end of the line. I say, okay, thank you. Good luck with that. Click. And in that very short conversation, because it was an unknown number, I thought, oh, shit, why am I getting a call at this point in time? What's going on? I answered it. Anyway, I hung up, and whatever may have been around, I think had gone off. The bush is very thick there, as you'd know. And I stayed there for half an hour, wandering around with the lights off. And then I went back to the car, and I was just really quiet. By then I could hear kind of, there's a hoon, feral, yobbo element out there. They'd get up to no good on the other side of the river or in that area. There's burnt out cars. And there's even police signs saying, warning, you will be filmed here. So I'm wondering, what do they film there?
That whole
I've driven past a burnt out car.
Yeah, that a lot of weird stuff goes into that, on that forest. I mean, a lot of crime, a lot of illegal activity. There was even a talk, which I've never seen in 10 years of working in that area. They're saying witchcraft and satanic worshipping. And then, of course, you throw your fishermen, your illegal campers, and then, of course, the people are out there. And the biggest thing they film was two things: the illegal dumping, and two, for people knocking off wild fauna, and particularly the trees called black boys, which is very popular and command big prices at nurseries. And so they film a lot of that, but that's in the first half, because where we go and where all the activity has been is in the old growth area, the old growth Australian forests along the river. It's not up in those areas where there tends to be a lot of problems. In fact, I'm pretty sure, and this is an awful thing to say because we had no idea this was going on at the time, I'm pretty sure we were down one night on a night investigation, trying to get some sort of activity to come to us. And I'm pretty sure it was the same night, and this is a bit morbid, and, a shout out to the family of the victim, that we don't mean any disrespect by this, but this was the same night we found out, some months later, that we saw the lights of a car. We had no idea what it was, but it was the night that someone got bloody murdered by somebody else up in the upper part of the forest. And we had no idea. You just see lights. You just see lights at the time. You think it's a fisherman or someone driving through. You have no way of being able, reasonable way of putting two and two together, especially when we're about a kilometre away. But you can see the lights. But a lot of weird stuff goes on down there, Buck.
Absolutely. And it would also be weird if someone came across me walking there at night, going, "What's this guy doing walking out here with lights off?" It would be frightening for them. And then I obviously, when I reflect and hear about what you said, I go, that's what I'm more scared of, is people, the bad guests.
Well, the thing, a lot of the local. Sorry, Buck, I'll just say this to cut you off. The area is full of sightings and experiences, even to this day. And a lot of people knew us. A lot of the fishermen and some of the illegal campers knew us, because around that time, I had done some part-time photography work for National Parks and Wildlife. It was a little bit of a smokescreen for me to be able to talk to people and ask them about any observations they may have had of any, and I put it in a way such as things like feral animals or feral dogs, or have you heard any growling or grunting? And you'd be surprised what they tell you, because I actually know that there's no feral dogs in that area. So anyway, but what I'm saying is the point is that the area is still, even though it looks dead and it seems dead at times, it's still an active area.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Sorry, I stole your train of thought. Sorry, mate.
No, it's okay. I'm back on it again. Okay, yes, I've had this encounter. I don't have any vision because it's a GoPro. It's dark. What I do have is the audio, and I played it back, and it's quite commanding. And I sent it to Rusty, who's a well-known researcher. I'd sent it to you and asked you for some help, and you had said perhaps Rusty might be a good fellow.
He is.
And he was. He worked on that bit for me, and he got me the sound. And
for the record, he doesn't like to be called a researcher anymore. He's just a bloke.
Well, this great top-notch bloke, formerly known as a researcher.
Yeah, the Rusty 222 we're talking about on YouTube, Rusty 222 researcher, former researcher.
No, it's top bloke.
Top bloke. That's what he likes to be known as, just a bloke, Rusty, the bloke.
Was very kind, and he worked on that audio for me, enhanced it, and sent me back really interesting data that came with it that supported my experience of what happened. With his extensive top bloke research, he measured his own footfalls over a given period of time.
Well, it's a little bit more than that, which I know a fair bit about. Can I explain that to you? What Rusty built? So Rusty believed over a long period of time, using distance markers, that you can tell pretty much the theory came from sound triangulation. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but in various cities in the United States, they have this thing where they have microphones on top of most of the buildings, high definition, high volume microphones on top of most of the skyscrapers and buildings all throughout a couple of major cities in the United States. And this was this came about because of, was it the sniper? Was it Washington Sniper a few years ago?
Yes, that's right.
The Washington Sniper.
About 12 years.
And because no one could find him, no one saw him, no one knew him, and they had no way of tracking or trying to get a jump on him. So they came up with this idea of placing microphones all around the whole city. And when they heard his shot, they were able, using an algorithm, a mathematical algorithm, to triangulate the region or the area where it came from very, very quickly. So the concept of what Rusty was working on, which we will be talking to Rusty in the coming weeks, and we'll be able to talk a fair bit about this. So Rusty was able to set up directional microphones, so basically a north, south, east, west arrangement. He probably went in the other areas as well. And he was able to measure his own walking versus kangaroo sounds over 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 meters in all different directions. And he catalogued those sounds because those sounds have their unique signature. So if you look at Rusty's, let's say Rusty's 5'8" and 150 kilos, let's say. Whereas a kangaroo might be, the kangaroos there, wallaby might be, 4 foot tall and 60 kilos, and so on and so forth for the other grey kangaroos. So over the time, he was able to build a catalogue of all of these sounds, and of what a heavy human, a light human, wallaby, kangaroo, what they all sound like. And he's got this catalogue. And then what he can do is when he analyzes the other sounds, so say your sound, he's able to compare that to the samples that he has, and that he can roughly tell you how far away it was from your recorder and pretty much how heavy the object was, roughly. So in excess of 100 kilos, in excess of 150 kilos. It's taken him years to build this database. And that's what he's been able to do. And that's what he did for you. But I thought it's worth explaining exactly what Rusty's done, because a lot of people don't understand how he's been able to come up with some of the observations that he has. And it's been because he's taken the time and the work and the effort to build a database like that.
And he's also very methodical, and he applies an extraordinary critical eye to his work. He doesn't let rubbish get through, and if he feels like he's misled people or something was flawed, he will announce it. He will recant something that he said.
That's right. He sticks his hand up.
He's very honest. He puts his hand up. Top bloke. Anyway, Rusty kindly gave me this information that said exactly what you said. He had measured the sound for how heavy it was because of all the low frequencies.
Yeah.
And it supported my belief that something big and heavy was stamping its feet at me. And he had also had one similar experience. And I'll flick that on to you if you want, Ray, and you can tack it on somewhere in this interview.
If you are interested. Yeah, no, that would be great. If we could only have that program, of what that work, that database that Rusty created, into some sort of program that we could have live on some sort of handheld device that we could have plugged into a microphone. So when it happens live, we could, we can see, not like a Star Trek tricorder, but we could see direction and distance and how heavy. That would be using sound waves.
Well, here's the thing: is you have all that with your own perception. I had thought that it was within 10 meters, and his data and calculations suggested it was around that area, and it was also heavier than me. It was heavier than a kangaroo or a wallaby, and he shows you the hertz, the frequencies, the sound that is delivered when a wallaby jumps through known distances, a kangaroo jumps through known distances, and a person walks through known distances. So
a sound frequency is as unique as a fingerprint.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, while I didn't get the picture, I certainly had something that I hadn't had for a long time, even though I've been out in the bush plenty of times with Dean Harrison, yourself, and other researchers. I hadn't had anything as exciting as that for a long time. I've found footprints. I've been on overnighters. I've stayed overnight on the rock where Dean was attacked. I stayed there overnight with my brother, and I was waiting to get attacked, but took my poor long-suffering brother along with me. I hadn't had anything as galvanizing as an experience as that thump, thump, thump. It was just so intense. It was not a kangaroo, and it was...
No, especially because the kangaroos in that area aren't big enough, anywhere near big enough to create a sound like that.
It was also communication. I'd walked past there. I don't know what it means. It was an interaction, I would say. I'd walked past there 5 minutes before, nothing. I'd walk back, and then I started to flick my light around trying to find this wallow where a car tire had gone through, and suddenly something was announcing a presence. It didn't need to, but it did. So I upset it or stimulated it. I may not have responded in the way it wanted to, was me go tearing off in the other direction. But I'd just been past that very tree, and it was a big, massive tree set in amongst some lantana and thick scrub. And I was about 6 to 10 meters away. And then further down, perhaps 20 meters away from me, is the creek. So it all fits within known patterns.
It sure does.
It definitely wasn't a kangaroo.
As I said, the level of activity that I documented, and those who worked with me independently, that we documented in that area over 10 years, is incredible data. It is a whole nother, even though the area got logged out, the old growth areas didn't. The pines amongst the old growth did. So the area got flattened a little bit, got cleaned out a little bit. It's the last couple of years it's coming back. The question is whether or not the subjects will come back. We know that a couple, as you and I discovered not January just gone, but January before, we spent a day out there in a certain spot in a hide that we created, surveilling areas, and they knew we were there because they threw the rocks to distract us, and we could certainly, we know, obviously, where I showed you, we know where one of their day resting spots are on that riverbank.
Yeah.
It was a very, very hot day, so I don't know what we were thinking really, because they weren't going to be moving until late afternoon till it cools way off. But
we were also time poor. It was the only time that you or I could get away in our busy schedules, working 6 to 7 days a week.
Yeah.
This is the only opportunity we have, whether it's hot or not. We were going to go out that day.
And guess what? We've got all the time now, but we're not allowed to go out.
Yeah, curses.
That's true. Buckingham, final thought. So re-ask the question. What is the yowie to Buck?
The yowie to me is a fascinating period of my youth that I'd like to revisit with adult eyes. I'd like to set my eyes fully on one and look it in the face. Whether I'm brave enough to get a picture or not, I don't know. I think that would be a complete journey for me. Earlier on, I thought, I will be like a lot of people. I'll be able to get a photograph. It's very difficult. There's so many people being armchair critics. You don't find them sitting behind your computer keyboard. You have to get out there.
That's right. The
keyboard
getting
out
warriors.
There is very difficult. That's why Rusty was amazing. He was so amazing getting out there a lot of the time, but I'm sure he wished he could get out there more. And to me, the yowie is an opportunity for me to get an answer to a mystery chapter of my life. And whether or not I can prove it to other people doesn't matter. But I do want that experience. I want the rock in the back of the head, and then to be looking upwards, slightly dazed as it drags me off into the bush.
Buckingham, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ray.